roll or to run.
We allow for the silly, the serious, the cool.
We offer countless ways to work on your
Library
health.
Commission
We
meeting,
keep our youth safe.
Monday, September 8th. First of all, I think it's important that we welcome our new member. So I think as a first step for welcoming our new member, we might go down the table and introduce ourselves. And we do have a request in one of an email about perhaps as we introduce ourselves a little bit. Boy, it feels like I am echoing all around. As we introduce ourselves to say maybe what brought us to the Library Commission. Quickly, briefly, let's do this. Starting with Paul, and what body you represent.
Paul Heavenridge, County Commission, and they twisted my arm. No, that's not true. No, I'm happy to serve. I've got library in my blood. So.
Reese Foxon, Cloverdale Regional Library, and what brought me was a passion for libraries that I have had all my life, and the recognition of the need in the communities for the library, particularly for students and educational purposes nowadays.
Hillary Smith, I'm the commissioner from Cotati. I am an academic librarian at both the Santa Rosa Junior College and Sonoma State University.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Sanders, and I represent Sonoma Valley. And the reason I'm here is because I was an elected official, served 2 terms on the City Council in Sonoma, both as mayor and council member. And can you guys hear me? Maybe that's better, isn't it? Anyway, Joanne Sanders, I apologize for that, Sonoma Valley. And I represented the library sort of as a liaison to the Sonoma City Council during the time that I was on the council, and was a big part of helping the library get remodeled in our community because the city owns the library there. So it was a big investment before we lost redevelopment, and I'm really proud to have been part of that. Thank you.
I'm Randall Neff, and I represent the town of Windsor, and I've been very interested in books like forever. So, I guess that's it.
Hi, I'm Paul Grill. I represent Healdsburg, and as I said before, I'm a pathological bibliophile, and Bo Simons tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I would consider to be commissioner. And I considered it an honor, and here I am.
I'm Linda Garcia, and I will represent the county and the city of Santa Rosa, and I am honored to be here. Libraries for me are continued education. Wherever anybody is at in their education, they can go to the library, and it is open, it is free, it is gratis, and I will be your representative for the county and the city of Santa Rosa.
And I'm Tim May. I'm the representative for the city of Petaluma. I think I'm probably in my 25th to 30th year of service to the Sonoma County Library as the member of the Petaluma Lab, and then 7 years as the representative for the city of Petaluma. And libraries are home for me.
I'm Helena Whistler. I'm the City of Sebastopol representative. I was on the previous commission for 3.5 years and completely committed to the library. So I'm very happy to be here.
All right. Welcome. We have 2 members absent today, David, and I don't know whether we've mentioned, but Ami has resigned from Rohnert Park, and Barbara McKenzie is the new representative from Rohnert Park. And to my knowledge, she just arrived back from Scotland, still part of the UK as of today. And she will be at the next meeting, I imagine. I don't know, but that's where she is. Pardon me? Yes. Another general announcement is that the restrooms are down those stairs and to the right. The other ones are outside, and we don't use those at night, so down the stairs. All right. Any other announcements? I thought, let's see, library registrar.
We do our lab.
Commission reports is now back on the agenda. It's a new agenda.
Oh, no.
So we'll do that there. You don't, 9.214, we were just handed out.
I don't think I got that.
Okay, any other general announcements from any commissioners? Questions? See up here, 9.
Yeah, I do, but I don't see a separate place.
You've got 825. This is 9.2.
I know, but on the agenda, where is it?
So it's down.
Where's Commissioner report? Because those are the ad hoc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are the committee.
Okay, so we do need to do, we don't have on the agenda, we're trying to get this straightened out. We usually used to have a chance for each commissioner to give a report from their lab and their local building. So again, we'll do that, but this time we'll start here.
No, announcements. We're doing this under announcements.
Because it isn't on the
There's no
agenda.
place on-
Yeah,
that's
okay, go ahead.
The Library Advisory Board met last Wednesday in Sebastopol, and at that meeting, they changed the bylaws, and they will start having their meetings bi-monthly, beginning, starting next month, so then it'll be October and then December. I think that's how it works. Anyway, they will send the information to Rebecca, and it will get up on the website. But they had been meeting monthly, and now they're going to start bi-monthly, although they do meet in October, and I believe in the first part of December, skipping January, meeting in February. So that's a big change for them because they've been doing monthly for a couple of years now. They are avidly seeking some additional LAB members. They have a number of vacancies on the lab, including the youth member. So one of the things, a couple of things they're going to do is write articles in the paper, talk to people, and also talk to the high schools to see if something can be worked out to interest high school students in participating, maybe as a civic project that they perhaps could get credit for. So they're going to be working on that, and I have offered to help them with that. I wanted to also mention that the Friends of the Sebastopol Library's book sale runs from Wednesday through Saturday this week, so if you get a chance to, check it out. And also to check out, please, is the landscaping that is still a work in progress for the City Hall Library Complex, and that's at the corner of High Street and Bodega Avenue. So it's really starting to look pretty cool, and they have some great people honchoing it, and they have given tours about permaculture and things like that. So they're really trying to involve the community and the public in general, and they are looking for money. So if you can donate to that really good cause to spiff up the Sebastopol Library, that'd be great. Thanks.
Petaluma Library, Joe Cochran is now officially on board, and people are smiling. And the Friends had a sale in August, and $4,000 some made. And the only other brief news is that the Lego program has made it to Petaluma also, and I'm itching to get my fingers on some Legos. Anyway.
I don't have one because...
Okay, yeah.
The Healdsburg Lab met last week. I was there. Brett was there. We're a little bit light in our lab. They're looking likewise for some youthful representation and hopefully some younger couples with children that can sort of cross-pollinate the group. There was a wine library 25th anniversary on August 10th at the Round Barn. Maybe that's a little out of date. And then the Friends of the Library in Healdsburg had a great picnic and annual volunteer appreciation picnic. It was maxed out, and it was like one of those delightful things. And you know, it was at the Devaro Farm and Winery, which is sort of one of those upscale things we've been inculcated with in our wine country in the last 10 years, and it availed itself to the use. It also came in that meeting that Brett Lear is speaking at the Healdsburg Rotary on 9/22, and this may or may not have anything to do. I think I'd like to read this. This came to me when I asked a question about if there's anything anybody'd like to bring up from the Healdsburg contingency. David Sabsay, founder of the Sonoma County Library as we know it, will be inducted into the California Library Hall of Fame on November 7th at the California Library Association, a conference gala dinner in Oakland. Linda Herring, now retired, was passed of Sabsay's management team, and she wrote, he was probably the last classically educated, politically astute in the field of librarianship. To work alongside him toward common goals was rigorous, invigorating, and in retrospect, a heck of a lot of fun. The banner of public libraries as a cornerstone of democracy and intellectual freedom is not carried as high nowadays as it was in the 70s and 80s. It's this and not lack of funding or the internet which presages the demise of the uniquely American institution to which Sabsay was so devoted and to which he inspired devotion and so many others. So we have a chance, I think, to take the helm and make it so again. That's
all. The Windsor Lab will meet Tuesday, October the 14th in the afternoon. We have at least 2 vacancies. We are talking about a person being the youth member, but it hasn't happened yet. The library will be sponsoring an art show called Fibers and Fabrics, and the reception is Wednesday, October the 15th, and then it'll be on display for about a week and a half. The Friends has a continuous book sale in the lobby of the library, and then they do occasional sales. One was yesterday at the Farmers Market in Windsor, which was quite successful. And we did Legos on Saturday.
Sonoma Valley Friends of the library had an outstanding turnout for their first. They sponsored a book club and got a local professor who's actually local but teaches at UC Santa Cruz to moderate. And I attended the first meeting. The room was spilling over. We had not enough books, not enough chairs to accommodate all the members of the public who came to be part of this book club. So super exciting, very well. In fact, I think they had to divide into 2. I didn't continue because for a few reasons, but I think there were upwards of 40 people that arrived from the general public to be part of this book club. So it was an amazing turnout. And I think they divided the group into 2 to be able to have meaningful conversations. So the first ever and an excellent turnout.
The Roanoke Park Cotati lab met August 19th. They also had a little change to their bylaws. They'll be meeting every other month on the 3rd Tuesday, so the next meeting will be in October. There are also some vacancies on the lab. They just lost Barbara McKenzie. We just gained her, so those will be some big shoes to fill. There are also some significant vacancies coming up in their Friends group. They have some longtime members retiring, so those will also be challenging to fill those spots. They're working on an outreach program to Rancho Cotati High School, trying to get library cards into the hands of the high schoolers, and they continue to strategize about how best to accomplish that. And in the Roanoke Park Katati branch, the new teen space is just about finished, and it's really very beautiful and welcoming, and it's nice to see.
Cloverdale's lab met August 12th. Their primary topic was partnerships and how they can build partnerships with other entities within the city to strengthen the connection with the community. They also talked about outreaching into the high school and helping students become more aware of the resources and facilities that the library provides, since they do not have a library at the high school anymore. And the Friends book sale is going to be October 1st through the 4th. They do have a continuing books available for sale in the library in the lobby, but their main sale is in October. So.
The Guerneville Lab will meet on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to a beautiful drive from Petaluma. And I will report next commission meeting on what the lab said.
I noticed as we went around that several of the labs are in the situation of needing more members. I'm wondering if it might not be useful for either an article in the PD about what a lab membership means, or a letter to the editor in the PD letting people know that there's this way to be involved locally, or else perhaps in the local newspapers, if the commissioners would take on writing something for their local paper, so that we let people know that this is available, so that it's not. We're expanding the Petaluma Lab, but we have people already interested. So anyway, thank you. Now on the agenda, we're at public appearances. This is the time for people to respond to the commission meeting regarding items that are not on the agenda. Hello.
Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland, and I wanted to come and congratulate you first on the 20-year anniversary of the Rincon Valley Library that's been helping here in this community, and also on the hiring of a new director for the library. For over 50 years, I've been loving the libraries in Sonoma County, especially in Santa Rosa, where I welcomed the new library in the 1960s and the Cottingtown branch in the 1960s. And I've been advocating for a Roseland branch library for over 20 years. I always hear there's no money. So I understand that. Because the district is always short of money, I would like to advocate two methods of raising funds, especially without raising taxes. Now, these methods will work. It's just a matter of political will. The first would be computer use and accessibility. Using the Santa Rosa branch as an example, you could institute a $1 fee and allow the users to use the computers more than 1 hour. Pay as you go. Because essentially the Santa Rosa branch library has become an internet cafe, and also a movie theater, and also just in general a place to listen to music and hang out and use the county's electricity. There's lots of people in there now. Some people used to laugh at me when I was young and say, oh, he lives in the library. And that's just because I went there a lot to read. Now there are people at the library all the time because that is their second home. Now, the second thing is pay toilets. Just 25 cents at the toilet, a pay toilet, and tokens for children, which can come and get them with their parents. You'd be surprised how much money is probably spent at the Santa Rosa Central Library on just basic facilities of the toilet and all the sundry goods that go with it. People use the facilities endlessly. They come in off the street. It's their spot to clean up. They're not there to read so much. It costs you folks a lot. So please raise funds to cover the costs generated by the user fees. Users would bear a portion of the cost, and the increased computer hours would be popular countywide, I'm sure. Add extra computers. After a while, things will be looking good. When you explain these costs to library users as a way to avoid raising taxes, especially taxes on the poor, sales taxes are regressive and they affect people unequally. So if you put user fees in, that would be something that could help us all. And I bet your patrons would step up to that. They'd recognize this is to help the library, this is to help all of us in general, and I know that's what you folks are about. So, sorry to hear that you have the time-limited democracy of 3 minutes. I know that you could do better than that because you folks just gave lots of good announcements, and you know it sometimes takes longer to talk about a topic than just 3 short minutes to boil an egg. Thank you so much for your time. Bye now.
Thank you. Any comments from commissioners? All right, moving on to the Library Advisory Boards and Friends of the Library presentations. I believe we have one today.
Hello, good evening. My name is Josefina Fregoso, and I'm representing Amigos de la Biblioteca del Condado de Sonoma. Okay, and anyway, we're a group that's come together over the last 10 months, and we're getting ready to announce our new board members tomorrow at our meeting. So we're very excited about that. We're a group of people that are partly Sonoma County librarians, also advisors, as well as volunteers, and that's who makes up the Amigos. We are part of the Sonoma Public Library Foundation. We are under their 501(c), so we're very excited about that. We're officially an unincorporated association, and our mission statement is specifically Los Amigos is to provide a bridge for our unique Latino community to discover the benefits, resources, joys of becoming patrons of the Sonoma County Libraries. In working with Amigos in the last 10 months or so, it looks like there's a lot of different needs in the community, not just for Latinos, but I'm really excited about being a resource for our entire community so we can come together in one great institution that we have here in our county, the library. Okay, and one of the things we talk about reading, but we also know that the library, the institution of a library, is a great resource for research. So we are putting together groups of volunteers along with the universities here, Sonoma State, to hopefully achieve some of these goals. Some are short-term and some are long-term. One of the projects that we have going on, we're going to be working with the Petaluma Library as well as the Sonoma Library to put on Day of the Dead activities, first part of November, end of October. And we have a project called Operation Get a Library Card, and that information will go out in Spanish and English. And we'll be working with some liaisons from different groups so that we have people that are bilingual Spanish speakers to help facilitate some of these activities. And thank you for letting me speak tonight and for listening. Thanks. Bye.
Any comments or questions from commissioners?
Yeah, Josefina, could you elaborate a little bit more on Operation Get a Library Card?
Sure. Well, one of the things that has come to our attention is that the libraries want to increase patronage, and so they want to see that we're definitely communicating out to the community about how to get a library card. So we're going to attempt that and take a look at what exactly is going on, and we're going to go through different outreach organizations and just be out there, and we'll be able to report feedback if it really is a need or maybe it's not. I don't know.
So, like, you have a plan for, like,
we do have a plan.
You do have a plan. Like going to a group, you're going to go to a group, a specific group, and then you're going to approach.
Well, our plan is to to network with other organizations already in the community and to be part of their activities, maybe have a table at their activities. Like for Day of the Dead, we are going to have a table. We're going to have a brochure. It's going to be in Spanish and English, and it's going to describe kind of the easy steps of how to get a library card. Also, we're going to have the library card applications, and we'll work with library staff to see how we can best facilitate that, and then we'll count that. And it gets pretty detailed, but
No, but that's great.
but it's an easy project, and I think it's a measurable goal that we can see where we're going with it. And from there, I'm sure there's other ideas that are going to come up. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks for sharing.
Safina, you're going to the monthly Latino service provider meetings?
Am I?
Yeah, or is somebody going to give this information to the Latino service providers that meet monthly?
Well, I am planning to make the rounds. I'm spread pretty thin, both at work and with this organization. But we're going to have, our board's going to be 6 members, so I'm hoping to divide the wealth of work. And yeah, you'll start to see us more and more.
So feel free to contact me, and I'll give you the information to contact Wanda Tapia, the executive director, so you can attend the monthly meetings. And there will be people there from different agencies who serve Latinos in Sonoma County. Secondly, the Los 100 meeting that will be in October at the Flamingo, about the state of the Latino in Sonoma County. That might be another place to do outreach.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm wondering if this is within your purview. Our lab is planning an open house 2 nights in, I believe it's October, I can't remember. And we are needing somebody to be there to help with translation and bilingualism if possible. My wife has volunteered, but if somebody else might be available to have a table or be there as a presence, that might be interesting.
Okay.
So if you were to contact the Petaluma Lab, and they might be that would be wonderful.
I might be able to coordinate a volunteer for that. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be great.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, right.
No, just thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, commission reports. There's the next item, and that we have 2 ad hoc committees functioning at this moment. One is the Directors Evaluation Committee, and the other is the Bylaws Committee. We'll have reports from both. Shall we start with the Director's Evaluation?
All right, and on this committee are Hillary Smith, Paul Grill, and myself, and we've met several times and developed kind of a draft timeline of how an evaluation process would go. We've met with Patrick for input on evaluation procedures, and we've met with Brett to get his input on how directors, the kind of connection with the director in a collaborative fashion. So what you have, the yellow form, is our draft to date of the evaluation form that we've come up with. This is not complete. We plan to have we hope to have a final version for you in October. This is probably a little more detailed than what the final version will be like. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but we are looking for the commission's input. So if you have time to please read through this evaluation, and if you have thoughts on what could improve it or thoughts on the process, please just email them to me and I will incorporate them. The committee, we had talked about meeting again this week, but I don't believe we set a date yet.
I think we're planning to meet Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah, I thought we already had a date.
Did we? Okay. I've been working on my calendar. I have so many different meetings. Sorry.
And in terms of Brown Act, we should just address the information to you, not to everybody.
Correct.
All right. Any other comments or questions at this point? We need time probably to think about this.
Exactly.
Okay, the Bylaws Committee has met also. We have gone over the previous bylaws and the bucket list. The members are Randall and Reese and myself. And we have come up with for lack of a better term, an outline of the issues to confront and deal with in the bylaws, and Randall is putting them together into a cogent document, and hopefully we'll be meeting in enough time in the next couple of weeks so that we can perhaps even have a draft out by the next commission meeting, so that we have that in that commission meeting, and then we can maybe approve the bylaws in the November meeting. Anything else to add, folks? Randall? Okay, no. It was kind of fun because Randall, our computer programmer, went through the old bylaws and completely reorganized them in subgroups. And I was thinking about subroutines and various things, but thank you. Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes from the meeting of August 7th. We have one document. I hope everybody who was absent at that meeting, Paul and you, yes, and Linda, everyone else here was there. All right, just so we know who our abstentions will be. Is there a motion to approve? Okay, Paul has moved to approve. Who seconded?
Hillary.
Joanne seconded.
Sorry.
All right. Any comments or questions regarding this issue? All right, I'll call for the question. All those in favor who can vote? Aye.
Aye.
And we have 2 abstentions. All right. Next, we go on to correspondence and press coverage. There was an interesting couple of emails from somebody whose name was already mentioned tonight, Linda Herring, about some things that we can do at the meeting that maybe make it more helpful for people who are watching on TV, because apparently our names only appear rather quickly to know who is speaking. So I just want to acknowledge that we've seen those, but I don't know what we'll do about them yet. But anyway, Linda, we're paying attention. And also in the envelope, did you have something to ask? Also in the envelope, there's a letter to the editor. I believe Brett may have even responded to this, I didn't get a chance to see what the other one is. By the way, just so you know, commissioners, that before the meeting, we will have these 3 binders and the press coverage and correspondence folder. Each of these binders is, this one is called Incident Reports, and this is essentially, basically it's from branch managers talking about incidents of importance that have happened at their library and what they've done. And just as a sideline, what I tend to do is I go, oh, August 26th, that was since the last meeting, and so I just usually find out where the last meeting is and read forward. We also have a folder of patron comments. This is really fascinating reading because it talks about the issues that people have, but oftentimes there's also responses that staff has made to those items, and I think it gives us a chance to have a thumb on what's happening. And then historically we've had issues with viewing inappropriate images on public computers, and we have a folder that tells when branch managers have had to deal with that issue, and I'm not sure whether people aren't filling it out because the last entrance is December 2013. So anyway, if you have time to get here a little early to look at these, or they are here at every meeting, and then they also probably live in Rebecca's office if you're in the library and thinking you want to pay attention.
I have a comment about that, about the inappropriate viewing of material on the computers. Before I was on the lab and before I was a commissioner, I remember walking through the library on the way. There was a quiet reading room in the back of the library by the wine library. And I could see that people were watching pornography. And gee, I thought, well, that's not appropriate for the library. But I walked to, not the reference desk, but to the checkout counter, and they said, no, that was not either enforced or enforceable.
Do you know when that was? How long
I'm going
ago?
to say a year ago.
Because we have behavior guidelines regarding that issue at this point.
And how are those disseminated?
The branch managers are aware of them.
There's been
You want to respond to that?
Hi, I'm Kathy DeWeese. I am the coordinator of children's services for the county system. I also am a member of the committee that works on the I'm a member of the behavior advisory committee that worked on the behavior guidelines. Before we had the revised behavior guidelines in place, which I believe was 2008, those were adopted, before that we really did not have any guidelines in place at all for how staff could handle inappropriate viewing of images on the internet. Once, and we really talked that through quite a bit, but once we adopted those behavior guidelines, we clarified that it is a behavior, and one of the main pieces of information on the behavior policy is that we are creating an environment where where we are welcoming and people should feel safe and my mind is blanking on the actual wording of the document. But with that wording of our behavior policy, we are able to, and we have done training for our staff on how to approach a patron and say, I'm sorry, this behavior is making others around you uncomfortable, and that could be the staff that's uncomfortable. This is making others uncomfortable. I'm going to have to ask you to either cover it up with a privacy screen or use a different website or go to a different website. I'm sorry, does that make sense? Yes. So staff has been trained. Some staff is less comfortable with enforcing that policy than others. You mentioned that you went to a circulation desk. Every staff member should feel comfortable either going to their branch manager and asking them to talk to the patron or talking to the patron themselves. We should feel comfortable. There are branches, probably many branches, where the circ staff would go to the branch manager and ask them to take care of that. But that is all covered through that behavior policy. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Consent calendar. We have nothing on the consent calendar. So we'll move ahead to action item by motion. We have an approval of an agreement for Envisionware maintenance contract. Before we even take a motion and discuss this, do we have does the staff feel they need to give us any background or?
Sure. Envisionware is a software that we use not only for our self-check and all of our RFID systems, we're also using them for our e-commerce solution and our PC timing, public PC timing and print management solution. As you can see from the invoice, we use a lot of their different products. It is an annual. Thank you. I'm Mike Dahl. I'm with the IT department. I'm the co-lead of the IT department for the county system. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm sorry. So we use a lot of their different products, mainly for our public access, whether it be internet, PCs, timing, or self-checkout systems. Are there any questions you have?
Any questions? All right, I think one of the important issues on this is it's already budgeted.
Yes, it is.
All right. Are there any, do I have a motion?
I so move.
Okay, who was the second? Joanne was the second, and Paul Bevanrich the. Okay. Any questions, comments from commission? Any from public? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. All right, the next item, we're looking through this tonight, aren't we? We're doing okay. The next item is the issue that I asked to have on the agenda, commissioner reimbursements. And a little bit of background. In the previous joint powers agreement, there was no contingency or a place of commissioners being able to be reimbursed for expenses. And the current JPA allows for this to happen. Now, for me, from one perspective, first of all, we need to kind of create a procedure if any of us needs to be reimbursed. And I think we need to do some thinking about what is reimbursable, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's this opened up a whole new world of what the Commission needs to think about in terms of being reimbursed. So let's go there, first of all, to discuss this issue, the issue or the possibility of reimbursement. Generally speaking, reimbursement would probably be mileage.
Well, yes, mileage is one thing.
Introduce yourself again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Ken Neiman, the CFO of
Okay.
the library. I did a little bit of research, and I concentrated on the 5 libraries in the state that are set up similar to us with governing boards. And unfortunately, everybody I talked to, most of them said they don't reimburse any expenses. One of them said that they reimburse professional memberships in library-related items and would even reimburse expenses if they went to a conference at California Library Association or something like that. None of them could provide me anything in writing, any guidelines or anything like that. So in the past, I think Sonoma County Library has paid for professional memberships for the commissioners. And there's many different ways you could go with it, whether it's memberships, mileage, parking, conferences, things like that. The mechanics of how it would work out, you may want to get involved in that. Maybe it could be part of your bylaws if you wanted to get detailed about it. I'm not sure. We could go like we do with the employees, where if you sign up for a membership to CLA or something similar to that, you would submit a receipt for reimbursement to the library. It's pretty open. It's a pretty broad statement. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any real good examples of other entities that reimburse for things.
So I'm kind of used to the world of non-reimbursements, so this is all new for me. So do other commissioners have questions, ideas, thoughts? Joanne?
So I am definitely in favor of having a policy about this and a budget spelled out. I think it's important to the diversity, to achieve more diversity on a commission such as ours, to have expenses be reimbursed. This is an unpaid position for commissioners, and it certainly is an honorable one, but if you want to have people of all income ranges and demographic background variety up here, it's important to reimburse for expenses. So when I was on the Golden Gate Bridge District, we had the ability to, I was on that board for 4 years, and we had a policy about expense reimbursement, and I know that one of the elements of that was you were allowed to go to one conference per year. And so whether that should apply to us or not, it was up to the director whether they wanted. Some directors loved to go to conferences, others didn't really have the time. But to be an effective commissioner, it's important to get exposed to the whole world of the library systems and how other libraries do things. And so I am in favor of directing staff. I don't think it should happen up here. I would like to see staff come back to us with options from something like what the Golden Gate Bridge District does, similarly situated districts in the region, what they do, and come back, and then we can sort of see some examples of what's happening out there. I don't think it should be, very robust because of our financial circumstances, but I do think that we should have some options. And just as an aside, for example, last week, I attended the California League of Cities annual conference in Los Angeles and met some interesting library people there from Southern California who knew Brett, by the way, and knew all about our system here. And so I thought that was really neat that there were people so far away that knew what was going on in Sonoma County with our JPA. And I did get my ethics training while I was there. So there are things that come up that a commissioner can take advantage of, but I did have to take a taxi to get to, and went a day earlier to be able to take the ethics training, but thought I would kind of get it all done since I was going there at the same time. So I do think that we should have a little bit of a few options to choose from to be better, more effective commissioners.
Other commissioners?
In the past, how big an issue has this been?
Well, it hasn't happened in the past.
I mean,
but
people...
I think, how can I say?
The previous JPA only allowed for reimbursement for mileage for library business, which I don't believe anybody ever put in for. I took it off my taxes instead. But there was no other reimbursement.
When I first joined the commission, there was an organization, and I'm bad at letters, but there was a statewide organization of library commissioners, and we had membership given to us in that organization. I believe that organization is disbanded. It's changed. I think the idea of having staff present us with a proposal for what our policy would be regarding it. I agree that it's one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is us being able to keep our eyes on the bigger picture of libraries as well as our local library situation. And so I think conferences and those kinds of things, especially since it's happening in California this year, in November, Oakland in November.
ALA?
CLA's in November. So anyway, so that seems reasonable to me. Any other commissioners? Yeah.
Well, I know for myself, I fit in one of those categories that Joanne was referring to. I'm on a very, very limited income, and I wouldn't be able to do anything or attend anything if I didn't get some help. And I like being able to see the big picture. That's the way I function. So it would help me, and I know probably other people, a whole lot in enabling them to do that. It would make them better commissioners, more knowledgeable. So.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in? Linda?
I agree, and I think we should use the same forms that the staff do to be reimbursed. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel in terms of documentation and those kinds of things. Start with that.
And I think we need to think about the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Do we include membership? Do we include conference fee? Do we include transportation to and from the conference? Et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are issues that housing at a conference and a budget. How top this would be and where we would find it in the current budget and et cetera. So I think we're giving direction to staff for the next meeting to have something. Brett's moving to his.
I just have one more comment,
okay.
if I may. In that, if staff is able to come back to us, conferences are extremely expensive. I certainly understand that. I mean, they just
they can get into the thousands very quickly. Local ones are great, like Oakland. But if you could also maybe put out for us some of the things that might be available to us through the web, webinars that are going on sometimes can be just almost as effective. You don't get the people contact, but I would be interested in webinars that have other commission library issues being discussed that you may come across in your professional capacity.
I was just going to ask if you all had any ballpark budget in mind now. That would be helpful for us to develop, because as Joanne said, at the national conferences, if you pay registration, hotel, airfare, those are going to be $2,000 to $3,000 a piece. So again, any ballpark figures would help Ken and I kind of craft the program to fit your budget.
I was noticing this on the line item budgets here. Let's see, 7302 is a travel expense. There's $24,000 allocated on that line. And then there's a county car expense at 33. I don't know if any of those are used or if they're just there.
They're for staff.
But that's like maybe, I don't know.
Those are staff related.
Staff
Yeah.
related.
Maybe this year it should, for the first year, it should be probably really, you know how we gave the labs each $500 for the first time last year. So I'm thinking this is a pretty new thing. We would want to see how commissioners use it. And so I don't know. I don't know if that's, and there's so many of us now. So.
Yes. I might make a suggestion that this first year, we obviously have a budget deficit going on here. We're trying to pass Measure M. I think if we, as the new commission, even though it's in the new JPA, take advantage of this and have a budget, I think that's kind of a target. And I don't think it would be real wise of us this first year to have much of a budget for this, maybe reimbursement for mileage, a very modest budget. I don't think if we put conferences in there, that's going to be a bullseye for people.
What does CLA cost a year? No, I'm talking about just CLA membership. Yeah. Do you know, David? Okay. So one thought, and I'm just thinking here, I'm not directing. One other option is to think about each of us having a certain budget, each of us being allocated a certain amount of money, at least for the first year, and that then we are able to tap into for either membership or using to offset part of the expense of a conference. Does that sound, like if each of us had $300, $500, I don't know. That's $3,000, $4,000.
Yeah. I have a suggestion. If we're going to go, if we're talking about professional development for the commission, which I believe we are, why don't we spend the money and have a professional development day where we bring people in? I think it could be more targeted, number one. And two, I've been to a lot of CLA and LAA. There's a lot of stuff going on. There isn't a lot, particularly for commissioners in that. I've been there. I've been many years from '95 going to these, and it's good to know what's going on in libraries in general. But I think if we're going to be targeted for the things that we're doing on this commission, it might be a good idea to have a professional development day. There's lots of great people that we could bring in. And use that money wisely and targeted, and we'll get a lot more out of it, I believe, than going to some of these. Just right now. Maybe in the future when we're flush and we have millions in the bank, that we can spend, maybe we can look at that and say, let's send all the commissioners to Las Vegas for the new, I mean, it's a target nationally. I guess because I work in the biz, it's really kind of a touchy subject right now, and I'd hate to see us go down that road, especially right now. We haven't we haven't needed something in the past, and now just because we are allowed to do it with the new JPA, I don't think we should jump right in and start doing a big budget. That's my feeling. I think so.
I agree with Paul, and I think that if we do anything, it shouldn't be until 2015, and that we should look, sure, we can investigate this, we can see what other commissions do, all of those things, but I think we should look at this not until 2015.
Okay, now, we did have some people who were advocates for current. Do they want to say anything about? I think maybe what it seems to me we're doing is opening the door and it's a discussion item.
Yeah.
I don't believe we need to take any action on it. I think I'm going to do one of my table swings to see the sense of the commission about how we proceed. But in any event, that's where I think we are. Paul's already spoken. Reese, do you have anything to add?
I definitely agree with proceeding slowly. I mean, when I said that, it'd be nice, it's not something that is absolutely mandatory, but I think proceeding slowly, and I think Paul's suggestion of bringing in a training now and then for the commission as a whole, very targeted, is an excellent idea.
I agree in proceeding slowly. I like the idea of a modest budget, but I don't see the need to decide how we would use it right at this moment, whether it be bringing someone in for professional development, sending someone to a conference, doing webinars. But since we're beginning to think about this in a professional development sense, I think it's not a bad idea to start budgeting for it in a modest way.
I don't disagree with anything that's been said. However, I do think it's important to give staff a little bit more. We're running a $160 or $70 million organization, and we're trying to bring more an elevated position, I think, by reconstituting the JPA, and it's important that we invest in ourselves as an entity. So I'm all for moving slowly, but in what the boards that I've ever been on, there's always been a budget for, and that was through thin times as well. I mean, we just didn't always spend it when we were on the council, but we knew it was there. So I do think it's important to move forward, and certainly by 2015, it's already September. So, but I think we should have something.
Randall?
And my mind was around 1,000 or less, so I think we're all on the same page in that regard.
I agree that I could certainly use some professional development to learn more about my job and what I'm supposed to do, but I certainly think we should wait until next year and see which way the physical winds are blowing then.
I'm also in favor of waiting and going slowly.
As Joanne said, I don't disagree with anything that anybody said. I think that this is opening the discussion for it. We've never talked about this before. So I think it's important and valuable and to take our time a little bit on this. I think modest amounts, perhaps for memberships, perhaps for group training, something like that. I do have a question, and I don't know if you would be able to find it out. Could we still put our mileage, claim it on our tax return? Because maybe if we can, that's something that we wouldn't have to put in for, which you don't have to answer it right now, but when you come, it's just something that that's how I've been handling it. And
What you described, Tim, with the, maybe $400 or so, that's pretty similar to what's in place now for staff. So one thing we can do is just share, what that program looks like for staff and the types of things that staff are eligible for. but that's almost exactly what budget we work under right now. And then Ken and I can certainly look for some other examples of agencies that do have a policy in place and share that with you at the next meeting.
Okay. Back to technology and the internet and those kinds of things. I believe I've mentioned this before. There is a thing called Tumblr, Tumblr, and Tumblr is very interesting in that you follow people. And I started following library Tumblrs. And usually every evening as I'm getting ready to read my book and go to sleep, I look at my Tumblr. And they're very quick indications of things going on in the world of libraries. And they usually have links to go further in if you're interested. And I mean, it was there that it dawned on me that net neutrality is a library issue. Mm-hmm. It kind of hadn't dawned on me before. So in the meantime, in terms of staff development, I recommend Tumblr. Once you get, the way Tumblr works is once you find one library Tumblr, they'll have reblogs of other Tumblrs, and so you can begin to join these Tumblrs and get kind of just, it's very quick. You just flip through and you go, oh, and then you follow. That book looks interesting. They're talking about that one. So in the interim, I'd recommend Tumblr. All right. So are we clear here that we're just kind of letting it go but opening the door and not having basically any?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I just also want to point out in terms of going to conferences but keeping expenses under wraps. In November, I think it's November, the CLA conference is going to be held locally in Oakland, and the next ALA conference is going to be held in San Francisco in June. So I wouldn't want to put the discussion off so far that we miss opportunities to not pay significant travel and housing expenses.
Okay. Got all that?
Moves us on. So you're asking staff to come back next meeting with some
well,
stuff? Or
I think they
off?
can have some proposals next meeting, but we may not decide at that point. But that would take us into November, so if anybody wants to go to CLA, hitchhike. All right. Or I imagine some staff might be going. Also, we're moving now to the 11.2, and we have a document on this. When we get into the ability to be reimbursed, we are also going to need to have ethics training. And Linda suggested that we take a 90-minute, that we have a chance to take a 90-minute free online ethics training. And from what I've heard, it really is 90 minutes. Even if you've got the concept and you want to go on to the next page, it's timed and you're going to be sitting in front of the computer for 90 minutes. Sort of like online traffic school, which maybe I've heard about, but of course I've never been to. Anyway, and then we'll go to, I don't know what kind of certification you get after you do this 90 minutes, but I would encourage, and we don't have a reimbursement policy yet, et cetera, but this is new for this commission that we do need to have ethics training. Paul.
Is this ethics training specified? Is it general? Is it because, well, for my MFT, I need to take ethics training, and it's coming up, so I will be taking a course in ethics in general. Now, that's specific to psychotherapy, but it also is broad as far as your actions. So I just wanted, does anybody know a definition of what this ethics training is about? Is it specific to commissions? Is it,
It's any ethics training that satisfies AB 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think it is pretty general.
So maybe I'm good.
Joanne?
It's not really general in my view. It's pretty specific to taking gifts and how you conduct yourself as an elected or appointed official. So I've taken it several times online and with a live person, and you just have to kind of trudge through it. But every time, some little reminder about something that you hadn't thought about comes up. In Sonoma, and I would imagine it might be like this in other cities around Sonoma County, all elected officials and appointed have to complete this training every 2 years. So our city attorney conducts it one evening, periodically, and maybe we can tap into that. It's free to elected or appointed officials. So you might want to check with your city and see if you can piggyback on that.
Does the county do anything? Does anybody know? Okay, but also we have this online free. All right, so Linda had mentioned this to me, and I wanted to be sure that we brought it up at a meeting and had it overt so people understood that it was something that we needed to do. And I agree, I think probably it is specific to local government, to government issues. And all right.
And one quick question. So when we complete this training, who do we turn our, that's what I thought, to Rebecca. Okay.
Keep track of it.
All right. Any other questions? Any public comment? I have to ask for it, but we no longer have public in the audience. I don't know whether the camera will let us know that. We have wonderful people out there, but no longer public. All right. So any comments from the public on this or the previous discussion item? I'm sorry, I forgot. All right. Next thing is the facilities assessment. Is this, Brett, is it you or Ken?
I just wanted to present this as an information item tonight, but Ken and I, about 3 weeks ago, were invited to meet with the county facilities folks, and they asked us what could they do to help us, and one thing that we said is we could use help with assessing our buildings and really determining their current condition, get clear on what the remaining lifespan are throughout the county, have a pretty good dollar number in mind as far as the deferred maintenance on the buildings throughout the county, and then develop a schedule for capital repairs that are needed for the buildings. This does tie into the JPA. Your new JPA requires a 3-year facilities maintenance plan to be in place. And I feel in order for us to get that in place, we first have to understand the condition of our buildings. So the county right now is in the middle of an assessment of all of their buildings throughout the county. So Guerneville is a county building, so that one's been evaluated recently. But at this point, I just wanted to let you know that we have an opportunity to potentially piggyback on the county's project. So at this point, I would like to just talk more with them, see what costs we might incur by working with them on this project, get clear on which of our buildings have already been assessed at this level recently, so we'd probably exclude them from the project. But again, I was just excited to see that the county was currently working on this, and it might give us an opportunity to get where we need to be so that we can get a facilities plan in place.
That's great. I think that's a good idea, get a baseline on what it looks like. But are we not also a little bit tardy in assessing some of our leases? And then in reference to that, as an adjunct, and how the leases are spelled out, sometimes the capital expenditures are, it's upon the landlord, to foot the bill on some of those. And some of those, they're not. And if all those are clarified, then you really can start to look at some nuts and bolts.
So to answer the first part of your question, the answer is yes. We have leases with some of our, for some of our buildings. We have leases with some towns and cities. Others we don't have a lease at all. And the leases that we do have in place vary lease to lease. So that's certainly something that Ken and I charged ourselves with, is to review all of our leases, see if we can work towards getting as many of them kind of boilerplate as possible. But they do vary right now. We have some cities that and towns that will actually help us with the interiors, and with some of our other leases, we pretty much do the inside, and the city or town takes care of the roof and HVAC and things like that. But I think regardless, it would be good for us to know what the condition of all of the buildings that we occupy are. And right now, I don't feel we know that.
And I think that's a good model, piggybacking that somebody that can help you with that. I really do.
Well, and the JPA requires leases, right?
Yeah.
So we're on that road. All right. Any comments, questions from commissioners about the facilities assessment?
Yeah, I'd like to see that on the agenda again, maybe in a month. Just an update. And could we piggyback leases onto that? Or is that?
I think leases it would certainly come into play, because certainly with the facilities plan it would, because the facilities plan would dictate what our plan is for spending money on our facilities, and that's based on what our obligations are through the leases.
Right.
So I do think the leases come into play. At the next meeting, I can give an update. What I'd like Ken to do over the next month is meet with all of the towns and cities and find out what they know about our buildings, find out more from the county, what it would cost us to participate in their study. But I can bring back more information for you at the next meeting.
Great.
I have a suggestion there. I don't know how things work internally, but I think one resource in that might be branch managers who know the buildings in a way that other people might not, so that perhaps they can be somehow folded into the picture of information gathering. Just a thought. All right. Any other questions about that? I think we've got something exciting next. I've been waiting for this for like 5 years, 6 years.
Hi, I'm Mike Dawn with the IT department. I'm going to talk and switch computers out as we go. So, as library users, you've probably used the library catalog before. In its current iteration, we've gone through several different upgrades, but the current iteration has been up for almost 10 years. One of my first jobs when I came to Sonoma County was to migrate the library system from the Dynex ILS, the Integrated Library System database, to Horizon. What we've been using since then is called Horizon Information Portal. So we're finally going to get that hip replacement. Had to, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is what it looks like today. If you've ever used it, it's pretty standard. It's probably, say, 10 years out of date as far as technology, what we expect to use as users when people go to a catalog or an interface. They're thinking of Netflix, Amazon, Google, one-stop shopping, get it and go kind of a thing. So this is the first look at the new catalog. It's called Enterprise. We're going to be giving a public preview starting on October 1st. It's been part of the ongoing digital branch project that we've been working on for over a year now. It's been in active development for a couple months. We're making, at this point, I'm making the rounds to the different staff meetings, the commission, giving demos, doing trainings, ramping up for the release to the public here in a few weeks. So as the active participation part, I got to ask you a question. Okay. Stephen King wrote a book a long time ago about a monster clown in a Maine town. Does anybody know the name of that book? Oh, Brett. The answer is It. It. Okay. So I'm going to do two things. So let's see if HIP can find it. So we search for It. And it goes and goes.
You're going to get a list that you won't believe.
And it found a whole lot of stuff. The Woman Who Changed and Other Stories, Star-Lord, Fellowship of the Ring. So it found them, but it didn't find it. So I'm going to flip back to the new one. The exact same search, general keyword, just punch it in and go. You notice one thing right off the bat. There's a suggested search that pops down. That's built from searches, successful searches from our public and staff users. So they'll get suggestions for things that have been productive and useful for other searchers, as well as there's going to be did you means for typos and etc. So when we search for it, it does take a second because I am on wireless. So now it found it. The first one right off the bat you'll note is not Stephen King's It, but it is a movie entitled It. Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 on the list are all Stephen King It's. That was never possible before this catalog, so it's really an exciting time as far as what we're going to be able to provide the patrons. Now, these are also the different types of materials we have encompassing that title. The first one's a Spanish publication of It. The second one's an audio book. We have downloadable audiobooks of the actual novel itself. When I click on the title, it's really small on my screen, it pops up with a full record. Right off the bat, you have the picture of the book, you have the title, a summary. Scrolling down, you have author notes. We can preview it if we wanted to actually listen to part of this book right off the bat from within the catalog itself. Another really awesome thing about this is what it's doing right now is Overdrive is our primary downloadable book vendor for popular titles, Stephen King being a popular author of those titles. So we can downloadable audiobooks and ebooks directly from within the catalog. We don't have to go, thank you. So to place a hold on it, you click hold, type in your library card number, your PIN, and of course there's typos because I'm doing this live. Now I can place a hold. As I mentioned, this has been in active development for a few months now. One of the things that I'm still working on is why would my name be in an email address field? So I'm working on putting the right information in that right now and learning how to type. Place the hold. Hold's been placed. We never left the catalog. That was through the Overdrive interface. I'm going to show you why that's cool even more so in a moment. Oops, must be later. Okay, so we're back at the title screen now. More than that, a little bit about the interface itself. You notice when I did that search, I didn't do anything. I didn't tailor it to an author, a subject, anything. I just did a general keyword search. Sorry. It searches all the words across an item record, a title record, I should say, with the word just it, and it found what I wanted. However, if I did want to tailor that, we have different limits that really fine-tune what materials we're searching. Oops. We can look at the pictures. We can actually look at the different, or search the different title, author, subject if we so choose. And then on the left, you'll notice we have a bunch of links. These are facets. So obviously we got 67,364 results as it's shown right at the top up here. Of course, that's a whole lot, but we got what we wanted right from the first try. But we can actually start to limit this down. What these are on the left, they're called facets. So Tim, I know that you are an ebook reader. So I have a Kindle. So I'm going to include just the Kindle, and then that's going to limit that list all the way down from 65,000, I think, to 1,501. At this point, Whodunit looks really good. I don't know why. It just looks really good, so I want to get that one. Again, there's a preview button if I want to, in this case, read some of the book directly from Overdrive, or I can download it directly. Select my Kindle, check it out. Pops me right over to Amazon. At this point, I get my book and go. It can be delivered to my Surface, my phone, whatever I might need at that point. Better yet, I'm going to actually check that back in so I don't keep it from anybody. But once I close that tab, I'm still in the catalog. So I've never actually left the interface. Now I would mention, yeah, please, thank you.
So I have a question about this. And I can wait till the end if you think it's better, but I just think it would be a tremendous boost to the effort with the sales tax upcoming and just the general communication with the public if this demo could happen at every city council meeting, if that's something that's possible. Does staff have that kind of time to, and do the rest of the commissioners think that this
we
is?
can certainly talk about it. It sounds great. In addition to being the spokesperson for it, I'm actually the person doing the development work. Well,
I mean, I just think it's
configuring it.
really
I totally
exciting.
agree.
And people don't know about, I mean, they just don't know.
No, and hopefully, no, that's a great idea, and we can talk about it when we get back to the shop, so to speak. When we go live, what I'm envisioning as far as a public preview is when we get to that point, I want to put a big blurb on the home page of the library, you know, the banner that goes by, that's got try out the new catalog. It hasn't actually been named anything, but I'm calling it Find because it actually finds things rather than stumbling upon them. So we're going to give ample, but that is certainly.
I mean, I know that it's unbelievable when you're in the trenches and you live and breathe this stuff and you're doing phenomenal work on the public's behalf. And people think of libraries still as books on the shelf, by and large. And there's a small fraction who don't, but we have, at least in Sonoma, we have the ability to go, I could get on the calendar, even not still there on the agenda, but I know we could get on the calendar as a commissioner. I can get a 10-minute slot that's televised on the Sonoma City Council meeting, and we can put this up, and the whole 30,000 people down there are going to see this and be amazed. They won't believe it. And I think it's super powerful to think that this is free service to the public, that they're still thinking about books. I mean, we have got to toot our horns, especially now.
It's very true. And we can talk about it. Never done a presentation for 30,000 people before.
It's just like you're doing right now.
You are now.
Exactly.
There are 30,000 watching right now.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, no, this is great. This has been a long time in coming. So I'm really excited that we're doing this too. So this is really good stuff. One thing I might mention though, so I mentioned we're downloading audiobooks and Kindle books from Overdrive. We also have a really cool platform called Anki. So Overdrive is the popular title, but then we also have a lot of independently published specialty titles. That one doesn't work as smoothly yet. You still go to the external website that you do with currently with Overdrive on the old hip that we're replacing. But thank you. I kind of do it for her, actually. All right. So I want to let people know about Anki too, because it's really important that we use that as well. But it doesn't work quite the same. Jumping right back into this, because I don't want to take too much of your time up in the meeting, but I think it is important to show you the account section as well. We talk about the cool things that it can do. So right off the bat, we were able to find it, check it out, downloadable, and the print material as well. In the account section, you can do all kinds of cool stuff as well. And you can now update your own PIN number, which we've never had before. There's going to be a request to update your account link in the checkout section. It shows the books that I've currently checked out. One's actually a movie. I do like Hercules for some reason, and a motorcycle proficiency book. Those totally on other sides of the realm.
Thus the hip.
Yeah. Those are physical items. I mentioned that it now keys into our Overdrive account. So this NPR Driveway Moments, that's a book that I previously checked out. You'll notice right in the middle of the page there's a link for download. I could actually download the book all over again. Again, I must say, from within the catalog, never leaving it. That's really important. Also, we have our holds. I have a book coming on Harry Potter. I'm all over the place with these different things. That's another physical item. And then remember, I just placed a hold on it. And then another book, Thrive. If I wanted to cancel those, I don't have to go to Overdrive. I can actually just check the box, cancel the hold. That syncs up with Overdrive. Again, I'm still within the catalog doing all that, never leaving, and that's really important. Also has a fine section. I do have some. It shows Runner Runner, another movie that I didn't actually watch, but I got some fines on it. So if I didn't know what Runner Runner was, I could actually click the link and it would take me to the title. So I could say, oh yeah, that's what that was. On the right-hand side, you'll also see the link that I've added that takes you out of the catalog, opening a new tab, but it takes us to our e-commerce solution, so I can pay MAP fines right there. Again, that's a new tab, so I'm bouncing right back to the catalog, and I never actually left.
Take me to interlibrary loans.
Interlibrary loans is, oops, sorry, I'm kicking stuff down here, waving my arms, kicking stuff. Okay, so interlibrary loans, so currently the way that it goes, we are still in active development, but I will say that if you have a search that gives you 0 results, and I just typed in some garbage characters just to show you this, we have right here, request an item from other libraries or suggest a library title for purchase. That goes to the form that's done by the selectors. Requesting from other libraries, sorry, I clicked on the wrong link. There we go. That takes you out to our form for
The current one. That's the current one, isn't it?
It is the current one, yes.
Yeah, and so that'll stay the same?
For the time being, yes.
Okay.
That's one of the.
That's all I had to ask. No big deal. I was just curious.
Yeah. We would love to replace it with something bigger and better, but that's one of the projects that's a little more further down the line.
Is a dancing a jig inappropriate?
Oh, wait, I forgot one thing. Paul? Espanol. Now, it doesn't actually change the, there we go. Remember, this is still in, it's not going to change, it's not working. This is, again, what happens when live demos and small fingers. It's going to be in Spanish and English is my point. So I'm going to leave it like that, but you can see that it is going to be bilingual in Spanish and English. That won't change the text in the individual records. So Harry Potter, if it's cataloged as Harry Potter, will still be thus. But all the labels about where to pick it up, how to request it, that kind of thing, they're all going to be in bilingual as well. Oh, and one other cool thing, then I really got to stop because you got stuff going on still. We have bestseller lists, so if I want to look at picture books, I can look through Legos. That's rather fitting that popped up. If I click on that, that'll take me into the catalog. Well, now I'm just ruining myself. Oh, there we go. I'm all flustered. 30,000 people, I'd be just out of my depth.
It's the same. It's just the city council that's broadcast.
The one drawback with that is if we don't have that book or if it's cataloged under a different title, then it does give you the no results page. But as you can see, with the hit, it'll take you to the catalog, and that's all of the hits that we have within the catalog. So we're trying to make it as interactive and as easy and fun to use as possible. So.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners besides the fact that I want to dance?
I would love to see that.
I've been waiting for this for. Anyway, I have a quick question about how much is this costing?
$12,000 a year.
$12,000 a year. Okay. All right.
Did you have a?
I just want to say yay. Good job. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments?
Let's not keep all this great stuff a secret. We got to share it.
Absolutely.
All right. Moving on to the management report. I have a question, Brett. How many lab meetings do you attend a month, on average?
Well, I go to all of them. Let's say per month, it feels like maybe 7 or so, 7 or 8.
7 or 8 lab meetings a month. Whoa. Okay. Only one lab meets monthly now, correct?
It's a good question.
Sonoma meets monthly.
Or none meet monthly.
Sonoma meets monthly.
Rohnert Park, Sonoma meets monthly. Only Sonoma.
And somebody said Rohnert Park. I think that's true too.
I think they meet bi-monthly.
No, they meet bi-monthly.
Is it every
But they
other
just
month?
changed their
Okay.
bylaws, yeah.
How often does that lab meet? Bi-monthly. So we have Sonoma is bi-monthly, Sebastopol's bi-monthly, Guerneville is bi-monthly, and Sonoma's monthly. Everybody else is still quarterly?
Yes.
Okay.
And I go to all the Friends meetings too.
Pardon me?
I go to the Friends meetings too, so that's
So you have
it's another 8 or so.
You go to library school to learn about being in meetings. Same as being a teacher. Okay. Any questions? Did you add anything you wanted to comment about on this, or?
No, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think the biggest thing for me this month was I probably had about, Rebecca would know, I think I had about 20 sessions on the tax measure, just getting staff the facts that they need so that when folks come through our doors, they can answer general questions about it.
Okay. Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, thank you. So I have a couple questions. You're on your update section says staff is concluding work on the 2013-2016 MOU. I'm not sure what that means exactly. If you could elaborate a little bit on that.
At this point, it's pretty much the print production of the document. The document's been complete for a while, but it's kind of been in various places on our server.
Oh.
So it's just us getting it signed and getting it finalized and getting it off to...
So it's not a negotiation.
No,
It's okay,
no.
more of a clerical thing.
No.
All right. And then this Guadalajara International Book Festival, it says that we've got a grant for some of the, I know we're talking about conventions and the like, so this is in Guadalajara, Mexico, I would presume. Is that an important book festival for us to attend?
Well, I went to it about 12 years in a row. It's the second largest book festival in the world. It's the largest Spanish language book festival in the world. The American Library Association offers a grant that if you apply to it and you're accepted, it pays for your hotel stay, registration cost, and part of the airfare. So the staff that are going, any additional costs that they have to pay, they pay it through their staff development allotment. But I believe it's a very valuable fair. There's still the vast majority of items published in Spanish are never reviewed in English. And then a significant number of titles that are published in South America and that are never distributed up into North America. So we do see things there on site that wouldn't be available to us otherwise.
But again, it's in Mexico, right?
Right.
So it's all in another language, and these are books that are in another language.
All the books are in Spanish, more or
Uh-huh.
less. Yeah.
Okay.
and
So
it's-
I'd be curious to know what the cost, what other costs are involved in us sending staff, how many staff are going, and what their staff development funds look like to supplement the grant that we get for that.
the difference would be $200 or $300, because the only thing that they would have to pay for out of their staff development is the difference in the airfare. The rest is funded through the grant.
Okay, so you're saying it's just a few $100s per staff member, and how many
Right.
do we send?
We sent 2.
Okay, and do we go every year? I missed that.
We
You
have
said.
gone for the last 2 every year. Yeah, so 2 years we've gone.
And do we go to any other international book festivals?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we're all aware that, 20% of our population or so right now is Spanish-speaking, so it's certainly an area that we are actively collecting in, and we probably have quite a bit of catch-up to do.
And did you say that in your other lives, in other libraries, you'd attended this?
2 other libraries?
When you were working in other places?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
did you say you'd gone for 12 years?
I went 12 or 13 years in a row, and it's called the free pass, is what the American Library Association calls it. When I used to go, and I went up through, I believe, 2009 or 10, there was, I believe, 300 or 400 librarians from the United States down there each time that were funded through this program.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
In the past, did the foundation support this to some degree?
Foundation support gave funds to buy books,
Okay.
materials, and friends.
Any other comments or questions about the management report? Reeves?
Is it possible to get a concise 1 or 2 page paper of all the facts that you're giving to the staff members, just so we have the facts too, in a concise form?
The facts about the book fair, or?
No.
Proposition
Excuse me.
M.
About the proposition.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry about that. I can send that, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
In all the years that I've been here, this is one of the longest staff changes documents that I've seen. And I'm just, I don't know whether it's kudos or sympathy to the people who are needing to deal with all this new staff and changes. And I guess it's appreciation for, this is part of the job, but it's also a lot to do. So thank you. And hopefully these movements will be successful and good. And we have a lot of even new hires open too. So this is one of the longest staff switchies I've seen. Any other comments, questions? Paul, are you leaning forward just to, all right.
I had intended in my library advisory board report to say how sad everybody is to lose Tiffany Bronson as the children's librarian in Sebastopol. Windsor's gain is certainly Sebastopol's loss. So I'm glad I had another opportunity.
Okay, any questions or comments about the management, the document that's on the back here? Let's see, where is it? The staff, one more. Performance management status report. It looks like we're still in the 90s pretty much. Okay. All right. Financial report document.
Yeah, I wanted to go over this real quickly, or take how much time you want, I guess. Not real quickly, but this is the first report that we've generated out of the new accounting system. So we're still learning about what we can get out of it, and it's pretty robust, but at the same time, it takes time to figure it all out. The cover memo that I've included there, I kept an eye on what was provided to the commission before and tried to replicate that, maybe in a little bit different format, but I just wanted to go through these areas that I highlighted. First of all is the cash. I think obviously that's on everybody's mind. Do we have enough cash to keep things going and things like that? So I wanted to put that front and center. And as you can see, it shows the current balance at the end of the current month we're talking about compared to what it was the month before. And I should back up a little bit. This document is fluid. If you would like to see anything more, we can make it happen. If you want more detail, there's all kinds of detail out there in the system that we can get.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Does it have the possibility of breaking this out by individual branches? In particular, like looking at payrolls of one relative to the other, or just expenditures relative to the other?
It does have the ability. The difficult part at this point is capturing the data at that level.
Right.
The payroll system, we have it broken down by division, which is one level up from.
What does that mean?
It's one level up from the branches.
Okay.
So, but we can report on things like that eventually. Yes.
Eventually. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the codes that are used here, like the 40002, there's more of an explanation somewhere as to what goes into that category.
Right. Yes.
So I would be interested in getting a copy of that. We used to have a key to the other codes.
Yep, I can get that for you. The other thing you'll see as you go down through there, some of the titles on the accounts are a little bit strange. We're tied to the county and the way they report things, unfortunately, to a certain extent. But one that I can show you real quickly, and maybe not real quickly. Where is it? But like for instance, it may be on the third page. It's 51504. You'll see that's titled Peace Officer Training Expense, which we don't have any. But yes, that's the lab expenses that are in there. So, we have to work on the presentation and things a little bit, but this came right out of the system. I can change things via spreadsheets or something like that, but as far as I cannot change the name of that account number.
And what did you say it is, really?
It's the budget for the lab expenses reside there.
Lab?
Under the peace officer training.
Right.
No, I see that, but I don't know what lab.
So, and we aren't able to create account numbers as much as we would like to now. They've limited that quite a bit. They said these are...
But you can rename that or make an ancillary thing that says...
Right.
Right,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. So there are things like that are going on, but that we can fix as we move along here.
One of the things that used to be there that I find useful is some statement about what percentage of the year has passed.
Okay.
Or what percentage remains.
Okay.
Because that's, when I look at these, I look at the percentage of the budget that's been spent relative to how far we are through the year.
Okay. All right.
And what about prior year to date?
Would you like to see that? We can put like July's prior year to date?
Yeah, I mean, just probably more generally in the model.
Okay. All right.
As...
The other thing that I think is worth highlighting is the tax revenue. Well, through July, there's nothing there, but it's just something to keep track of because it is such a large percentage of our revenue, and so I wanted to bring that out every month. The year-to-date revenue and expense just gives us a quick idea of where we're at through each month end. A deficit of $800,000 through July 31st, that's normal. The tax revenue will come in December and April, and so when that hits, things will look a lot better from the bottom line standpoint. The revenue and expenditure line items will expand as the year goes on. This is an area where point out big things that were spent or expensed or out of the ordinary things. So that one will grow as the year goes on. And then the purchasing, that's a requirement on the delegation of authority policy to let you know what's been, if anything's been paid during the month over $25,000, which there wasn't in July. So,
I have one other question. You know, when I asked the prior year to date, there may be some value in historically to date, where in some cases because of funding constraints or whatever, that we used to, for example, spend more money on, you know, buying books and buying things, and now we're spending it on something else, so that as a commissioners we could look at it and just ponder that concept. I don't know. Is that
so?
Like looking at a graph.
Okay.
Does that make sense or not make sense?
We can certainly do that. If you could give us the categories that you're interested in, we could plot those.
I would say the top 10. Well, I mean, you just really where you really, like obviously payroll is going to be one, right? I don't know what in this category what represents buying books, buying new materials, buying sundry items. I mean, for a thumbnail observation of seeing trending.
And that might be something that the Finance Committee can
Provide some guidance.
Can step in on. Okay, just.
And as I said, we're going through things. There's some things that we're also, obviously, the budget items are, some of them are in not the correct place, or they aren't labeled correctly, like I already said. One quick item to point out here to make that point is on the third page, about down to the bottom of the page, account number 52162, you'll see special department expense of $1.8 million in the budget. That's in the wrong place. That needs to be up about 5 or 6 lines in 52115, the books, media, and subscriptions. But those are the types of things we're identifying as we go through. The overall budget is correct, expense and revenue-wise, in the system. It's just a few things have to be moved within line items, and we're currently working on getting that done. So.
And like Helena said, some of these line items, we would have access to like really what's getting dumped into that jar.
Right. I'll give you a description of each of the line items and what they contain.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions from the rest of the commission? Okay. Public? All right. Moving on to item 11.5.2, which is the quarterly status report on Goal 3, which is establish and implement the best financial management practices.
Right. There's a couple things I wanted to highlight here. One of them I've already touched on. The budget and finance staff for the past 3 months have been heavily involved in learning and getting familiar with the new system, the accounting system. The first 2 months was just training, and then when July came along, we had to do a lot of double entry, the stuff that went into the old system that didn't get paid by the end of June. Then we got back from the county and we had to enter them in the new system. So there was a lot of things like that going on, and we weren't real fast at entering it because it was all new and things like that. But as August came along, we're much more familiar with things. We're working. The processes have changed internally. We're caught up. We're feeling a lot better about it. The concentration the first 2 months was on getting payroll paid and funded, and all the bills into the system and paid, and we are there. So now we're going to concentrate, like I said, on cleaning things up, the reporting aspect of things, making sure the budgets are in the right stuff, in the right areas, and things like that. So that's the new accounting system. One of the things that we're also going to be doing in the next 2 to 3 weeks are looking at alternative budgets at a little more detailed level. You know, we've thought about it and talked about it at high level, what the expenditure plan would be for Measure M if it got passed and things like that. So now we have to get into a little more detail and really look to see if we can project that budget, what it would be if Measure M passes. And then also we need to also look at what the budget would look like in future years if Measure M doesn't pass. And so we're going to be doing that in a little more detail in the next few weeks, and hope to have that. Well, I don't know if we'll have it nailed down next month, but we'll definitely have a lot better idea of where things are going to go. So. One of the things that's also related to the, you'll notice in goal objective 3B, it mentions the other post-employment benefits, or OPEB for short. I want to give a brief history on that. That's basically health care for our retirees. And last year the commission really looked at this because there's a big unfunded liability. As of June 13th, the unfunded liability was about $13.5 million. And so the commission and staff looked at it to see how we could start dealing with that and how it could be funded. They went through an RFP and picked a trust administrator and set up a trust with CalPERS. And that was executed actually July 3rd. On April 13th of last year, the commission set aside $500,000 of its fund balance and it committed $500,000 to initially fund this trust. That is sitting out there and committed in the fund balance, but the actual payment to the trust has not happened yet. And what we're proposing to do is fund that in October. And what that would require would be two things from the commission. It would require a budget adjustment for that line item, and it would also require the commission to authorize the actual payment that it committed to back in April. Right now, or in past years, and as we go, we're at a pay-as-you-go, and that's about $600,000 per year that we have in our budget. So that's what we're looking at. We're thinking about bringing that forward in October to the October commission meeting. That one's a mouthful. I don't know if there's any questions with that. It's
the $13 million unfunded
yes.
is for just the library system?
Yes. That's the unfunded actuarial accrued liability that we get an actuarial done every year, I believe.
and that grows every year?
Theoretically, yes. Now, there's been some changes to the MOU.
What the MOU? What is that?
The contract.
Okay. All right.
That may lower that number in the future because of some changes that were made to the retiree health benefit portion of that.
And how long has this deficit account existed?
A lot of it, and you can jump in and tell me I'm wrong, but my understanding is a lot of it has to do with how government accounting has changed in the last 8 to 10 years, and the requirements that are placed on public agencies as far as reporting. I think public agencies had these deficits in the past, but now because it's reported in a different way, it's a glaring deficit.
Right.
So, yes, and as Ken says, the Commission has been trying to wrap our arms around this problem, and we know that this is a looming problem. If we don't do anything, so we started with the $500,000 that we committed to a trust last year or earlier. It was last year, and then it was paperwork was done this year. But we have to start paying more towards it, or in 10 years we will be in deep yogurt, as they say.
It might be useful, I think, on a future agenda to give a broad, bigger picture. This is an issue that the former commission spent a lot of time with, and there's a lot of history, and I think it might be useful for the new commissioners to have that background so that we are on the same level of understanding of what this means and what I think every public agency you've been hearing has been dealing with this. And go ahead, Joanne.
Well, not every public agency has been dealing with it. It's only those that offer that benefit.
Right. That's true.
So the question I have is, are we continuing to offer that benefit to new hires?
Can I answer it as much as I know, and you can fill in, or go ahead? We have 3 tiers of retirement benefits, and we have a certain number of employees that are in Tier 1, which is the most expensive. And then we had Tier 2 negotiated. When did that start, Patrick?
2 years ago. Tier 2 actually was negotiated back in 2005, I believe it was.
Okay, and that was a diminished health retiree benefits. And then within the last contract, we went to Tier 3. So the effect of that won't happen for a while.
Right, but are we continuing to?
Yes, we are continuing to offer retirement health benefits.
So okay. And the next negotiation is in 2016?
2016.
What time of the year?
I'm sorry, what?
What time of the year will we
Well, the
start
contract expires June 30th, 2016.
Okay.
So the most recent tier that was negotiated, the third tier, extended the vesting period for an individual to be eligible for retiree health. It also limited it to age 65, and where a person would then have to go on strictly on the Medicare. Right now, the other 2 tiers, retiree health continues, for the life of the retiree.
And what's the difference between Tier 1 and 2?
1 and 2, 1 didn't have the same vesting requirement. With 2, the employee had to be with the library at least 10 years, and then to be eligible for dependent retiree health, they had to be with the library 20 years. So Tier 3 does not include dependent retiree health anymore, and the vesting period, I want to say, is 15 years. So, And as I say, it also ends at age 65, which is not the case with the other two tiers.
Why would a person as good as Medicare apparently is want to stay on another form of insurance?
Because the library has a very generous health plan.
I see.
But Joanne, I think you're raising the issue that it has been an issue in negotiations since I've been on the commission.
I was talking to Ken about this today, and I had the same question you did, Paul, about Medicare versus the library's retirement health benefits. So I asked Ken to actually school me in what the two, how they compare, so that in the future when I'm asked questions is, you know, when Ken and I were hired, we're at 65, we're on Medicare. We're not going to have the post-retirement health care benefits. So I do think that we'll be asked more how those two plans compare to each other. So it's something that we have to become more knowledgeable of as staff. But that's my understanding too, is that the current staff health plan is going to cover some things that Medicare wouldn't. I mean, I've had health plans in the past through my library jobs where I could do quasi-cosmetic things if I chose to in that, and, you know, I doubt that Medicare may or may not cover some of those things.
Well, also, just as give an example of the library's current medical plans, first of all, just if you were taking a regular PPO plan similar to Medicare, the deductible on our current plans is like $300, okay? And the plan pays 90%, you pay 10%. Well, that's, you know, a lot richer than Medicare. The network is very extensive. It's administered through Anthem Blue Cross. We also offer Kaiser, and our co-pays through Kaiser are $10, okay? It used to be $5 copay.
Right.
And again, these are all benefits available to active employees, but equally available to those who are eligible for retiree health. So they are very rich plans that we currently have.
Right. I mean, I can only reference in my world and in my company, healthcare in the last 12 or 13 or 14 years has been the single most inflationary model I've had to contend with. In particular, I can remember the days of $5 and $10 copays, but now generally, whether it's a family or whether it's an individual, we're talking about several, you know, $1,000 you're paying into before you fill that up to become eligible for even, you know, like the remaining 100%. And it's a pretty daunting task.
Well, some of the things that we have done in the last two contracts is we don't pay the same straight percentage across the board. How much an employee pays for their medical insurance is based on their actual position. Some employees pay 16%, others 18%, and others 20%. That's a change from prior years. We also, a couple of years ago, established Kaiser rates as the benchmark, meaning that the library isn't going to pay any more than what we pay for Kaiser. So if an employee chooses a plan that's more expensive than Kaiser, they're paying the difference between the Kaiser plan and the other plan. So all of those have tried to rein in our medical costs and have been effective in doing so, but you know, certainly there's more that, you know, we can explore down the road.
I think it's probably important that we do put this on as a discussion item in the future, because there's a lot of understanding to go through, and I think we can move on now, but let's say that it's something we really do want to get to. But the bottom line of what I heard you say, Ken, is that in October, we are going to be asked to make a budget transfer and to approve of a $500,000 payment from our fund balance to the trust fund for OPEB. And this is, in essence, acting on the decision of the prior commission.
Correct, yes.
And that money has been allocated in the fund balance to do this.
Yes.
Okay. So are people clear about that for the next meeting? All right. Okay. Thank you, Ken. Now we're going on to the calendars. 11.7, and I had it here, and I don't see it. All right, we have two calendars to approve. One of them is for the holiday schedule, and this is based on the assumption that we're going to continue to close on Mondays. Correct? All right. And a little background, it might be obvious, forgive me if I'm stating the obvious, but many of the holidays fall on Monday. So the staff is already has the day off already for that day. So this is why we have closures on Saturdays to compensate for the Monday holiday.
Have we explored, and again, this suggestion recognizes and honors the employees that we have we explored, in 2015, there will be 4 holiday closures that are not actually holidays. And rather than close those 4 Saturdays, have we explored voluntarily allowing employees to float that holiday and be open on Saturday? Or is that a management nightmare? The thing is that people will say, but that's not the actual holiday. I want to go to the library on Saturday. Is there a way to do that without increasing the budget cost and still allowing and honoring that employees get a holiday day off that floats?
What for?
I'm sorry?
You've got the 4. What are they?
Oh, there's Saturday, January 17th. Martin Luther King's birthday, of course, is that Monday. There's President's Day observed February 14th. There's Memorial Day observed Saturday, May 23rd. And Labor Day observed September 5th. And those are the 4. And those are the Saturdays before a Monday holiday. And allowing employees to float another day, but keep the libraries open on Saturday before that holiday.
Does somebody want to speak to that?
I guess my answer right now would be I'm not sure. I guess I'd suggest that the commission perhaps approach this from the days that you do and don't want to see the library be open and closed, and then staff can, we can work on the going back and looking at what we can do with schedules and that. But to hear from you just which days, you feel the library should or shouldn't be closed. I won't be able to, say tonight if giving staff holidays, floating holidays and that would work or not. But certainly we can take direction on what days you hope the library is open and closed. Does that make sense?
The thing that I have heard, I think, in the past is that the libraries are staffed at the minimum, and were we to offer the fact that some people can be off taking a floating holiday, I would imagine that would incur an expense for a substitute to be able to maintain the staffing at the various branches. So that's a piece of the picture for that I think I understand. Joanne?
I agree with, I'm sorry, your name again?
Linda.
Linda. I agree with Linda. And rather than try to manage from up here, I would say my direction would be figure out how to make the library be open on the 4 days that Linda mentioned. And we don't want to close the library on those days because the public needs the service.
That would certainly be my preference to hear from, you all tonight about which days, again, you want us to be open and closed, and then we can go back and look at ways to make that happen and how we would do that. Knowing that we may have to come back and perhaps give the financial, costs of doing that. But tonight, just to hear, like you said, Joanne, if you'd like to see the library open those 4 days, that would be helpful, and then
Do you
we
need
can
more
work on that.
direction than just those 4 days? I thought, didn't you say which days? The 4 days were Martin Luther King.
There's 4 days.
Yeah.
Sorry. There is 4 days, 4 Saturdays before a holiday on Monday that the library is closed.
Right.
And my point is to have service for the public on those Saturdays. And not to close any other days, we're closed enough as it is, but to see how we can staff to keep those 4 Saturdays open, honoring that employees still get a day off, and that we're not taking a day from them. We're just saying, how can we reschedule? How can that be done? Because we want to be there for the public on those days. Now, there is a day where it's perfectly acceptable. I think it's July 4th. Is a Saturday. It should be closed. Saturday's July 4th, we should close it. But the other 4, I think we should have open.
Okay. I'm noticing, I think, some typos. It says Wednesday, December 31st, 2013. Shouldn't it say 2014? And shouldn't it say January 1st, 2015? Okay.
Sorry. So Brett, with your question, if we were to open on those 4 days, what other 4 days would we be closed? That's what it sounded like. I'm reading it as you're saying, because of our staffing level, if we're going to open on those Saturdays, we would have to make that up with other closed days?
I don't think that's necessarily the case. I've gone through this process with other boards, and again, just to hear, I've heard these 4 Saturdays, so I've made a note of that. If there's any other days that you would prefer that we be open or closed, again, I'll make note of that and then begin working on that. There may be times when the union contract comes into play. Somebody's mentioned that there would be a cost associated with giving these folks, time off later. And again, we would just run these numbers, but just to hear again what days you want the library open and closed, and we'll work on it.
And given that iffiness, then do we hold off okaying the 2015 calendar till now, or do we proceed with approving this? It seems to make sense that we wait and don't approve this calendar at this moment.
Yeah, this isn't up for approval right now, this discussion.
Okay.
Are we okay then if we come back with this next month, Rebecca?
Yeah, this is not an action item tonight.
Okay.
Future board action is to approve. Okay. So this is just discussion.
So the 4 Saturdays, any other direction for days to change?
How do the rest of the commissioners, can I just take a rundown from the rest?
Well, I think this seems all familiar, and I think it's our intermediary co-directors. We did have this discussion, and it seemed there was a real cost to not closing because of the staffing, and that we would have to get substitutes, and it was fairly substantial, as I remember. So maybe you don't have to reinvent the wheel, Brett. Maybe I think this study's already been done. Am I correct? Didn't we talk about it in one of the meetings before? No? Okay. That was in my former life, in the former commission. Okay.
Good. Reese, do you have any?
It seems to me it's mainly going to be the cost that's going to determine how it's going to be. If Measure M passes, how will that affect it? I mean, there's several things to look at different.
You have no comment? Okay, we've heard. Do you have anything to add, Joanne? Randall?
I'd be interested in seeing the cost involved. But yes, I'd like to keep them open on Saturday if we can.
I think we all. Paul?
Yeah, I know, once again, I reference my world, but in some of these cases, we've let people make a choice. You know, we ran up against a wall in this kind of issue, and we said, pick one or the other. And so we were able to accommodate the days that we wanted to be open, and we were just short-staffed those days. And generally, short-staffing wasn't an issue on those days because...
It's a holiday weekend.
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay.
So that was an alternative, and
Nothing
that
to
worked
add.
for us.
Saturdays open would be great, but
Saturdays open would be great, too. It seems to me there's another player in all this, and I'm not sure of their role, and that would be the employees. I don't know whether it's a negotiable issue or not. That's all. I really don't know, but it's just one thing I would like to raise. All right. We do have the meeting schedule for the commission for next year, 2015. I had this schedule is presupposing that we still keep on basically the same budget calendar. That was, the workshops in February and March were basically for meeting the county's budget requirements. Wow. Does that seem like a good budget calendar for you, is that we keep on that same path?
Yeah, I think the county restrictions are no longer there, but at the same time, I think it's important to begin it early like that, and that way we have plenty of time to discuss it and get it passed. Yeah.
All right. Does anybody know, number one, when Thanksgiving is in November?
in
2015. And Labor Day? Labor Day would probably be the 2nd, I would imagine.
That's why I proposed Wednesdays for some of the...
Oh, okay, so you've got those on Wednesdays. Ah. Cool, that's interesting. All right, any input from commission about this proposed meeting schedule for 2015? It's important. So we have 3 Wednesday meetings, 2 all-day workshops, and yes, Reese.
I need to say up front right now, Wednesday is an impossible day for me.
Impossible?
Yeah, I won't be here those days, so if this goes forward with Wednesdays.
All right.
Any other night, but Wednesday's out.
Okay. Planning a budget workshop. Anybody else have Wednesday problems? Okay. Do we want to look at an alternative, or do we want to keep going forward with Wednesdays and say, sorry, but are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, anything here? We're moving ahead along, but I'm just wanting to... Okay. So this calendar goes forward for approval. Okay, we're almost at the end here, folks. The final item on this section is to form an ad hoc finance committee. I believe that the bylaws in their current draft includes the creation of a finance committee, but it seems like a good idea to create an interim finance committee ad hoc so that we can get started. And I've asked some people if they'd be willing to serve on that committee, and that would be Helena. I didn't really ask you, but I kind of assumed. Paul and Reese would act on the ad hoc finance committee. And it seems to me that a piece of what I would be interested in that committee tackling as initial item would be kind of the scope of what the finance committee's job and task is, to let us know. I mean, it's my sense of the finance committee is it would be their job to really understand the budget and the finances of the library and be able to raise issues of concern to the commission or interpretation to the commission as we get into the budget system and budget. And the other thing that I'll say is this is currently an ad hoc committee, but after if it's accepted in the bylaws, that committee will become a standing committee. And a standing committee has certain regulations regarding the Brown Act. The meetings are public and have to be announced and agendized and follow the Brown Act requirements. Is there anyone else who would just really love to serve on the Finance Committee? All right. And do we all agree that we can get started with the Finance Committee? Thumbs up? Okay. It's Helena, Paul, and Reese.
Paul Grill. Is that right?
Yeah. Not Paul Henry. Not the other Paul. All right. We have no lab appointments? Oh, okay. Do we have a document for that?
Yeah, we do. Here.
There's a revised one that's behind you.
All right.
Or beside you.
So we have one
had two
one
late
position. All right. Generally, we kind of have this procedure where the commissioner for that lab moves, but David's not here. So would you like to move that?
Sure. I move by resolution. I move by resolution that the Sonoma County Library Commission appoint Nancy Persons to a new position on the Santa Rosa Library Advisory Board for a term ending on June 30th, 2018.
All right. Second?
I'll second that.
Oh, okay. We had 2 seconds.
You had two Pauls.
Both Pauls. So pick a Paul.
You just put Paul.
Paul Hebner.
That's pretty neat last name.
He's been quiet today. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Will we have the youth member
Thank you.
from Petaluma? It's up there already? All right. So we have several here. All right. I'd like to move the motion number 2. Petaluma. I'll move that.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we have Rohnert Park, and Barbara's absent, so I'll move. Paul, why don't you use it?
I will. Since I actually interviewed this individual. I move that Mary Getman be on the vacant position on the Roanoke Park Library Advisory Board.
Second.
All right, seconded. Hillary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Almost at the end, folks. Thank you. Next, we have inclusions to items to include in the commission notes. I would like to try something here also, which I think it's okay to do. If not, items to include in commission notes, and I'd also like to open this here just to kind of review future agenda items that we've reviewed that we're going to be talking about. So far, we have OPEB as a future item. We have the possible expenses as a future item. We have the issue of Saturday openings as a future agenda item. Is there anything I'm forgetting about future agendas? I'm wondering if Ken is going to be creating some documentation about Measure M implementation and what, if Measure M were to pass, what the budget might look like, and if it were not to pass, what the budget might look like. Those seem to me to be information items, and perhaps it might be wise to talk about them in October rather than November. So that seems like an item to as a future agenda item. Are there any items or issues that the Commission would like to see on the agenda, upcoming agendas? Randall?
There should be a note about the new library catalog interface going live on October the 1st and how wonderful it is.
Okay, is this, now you're talking about the Commission notes?
The Commission,
okay,
the Commission notes.
Commission notes. Any other items on the Commission notes that we need to include, that we've talked about or decided tonight?
With the catalog, may I just add that it's going live as a public preview on October 1st. It's not going to be replacing the current one yet. So just so when it's documented as such.
What about something about Los Amigos, working on some outreach with some of the different branches and some of their plans? I don't know if you got all that or...
I think it might be useful to say welcome to new commissioner.
Commissioners, yeah.
Anything else, folks? I can feel itchiness. Anything else? What?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty short notes. All right. I believe we're adjourned.
Thank you.